6 day 931 19-mile road, Suite 140, Clinton Township, Michigan. Zip code 48038. My name is Jim Pachuki, and I'm the interviewer today. Our videographer today is Joe Remote. And also in attendance are Clayton's wife, Dorothy Wilkins, and Elizabeth Hauer of the RSVP program. At this time, Clayton, we're kind of gonna just have you start telling your story. If you could tell us, where you were born and where you grew up.
See, after graduating from boot camp and traveling from there to Mare Island Navy Yard.
Where did you take boot camp, Clayton?
I took boot camp way down in, let's see. It won't work, Jim. You're way ahead of my story here.
Well, no, you were born in what? What part of North Dakota?
I was born in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Bismarck, North Dakota.
In 1926. Yeah.
And then you spent your youth there in North Dakota?
Well, I was a railroad man's son. My dad was a brakeman on the Sioux line.
Okay.
And I watched the trains for years and years.
Okay.
And I went to school in Inlet, North Dakota.
Okay. And then were you drafted in?
No, I enlisted.
You enlisted?
Yeah.
Where were you inducted?
I was inducted in Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay, and why'd you choose the Army? Or
the Navy? I always wanted to be in the Navy. I always thought as I was growing up that I'd be in the Navy. I was a little premature before I finished school, but I got in.
okay. And where did you take your basic training?
Well, I took it in Farragut, Idaho.
Okay. That was a Navy training school?
Oh, yes.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after you got out of your training, what ship were you on and what purpose did it serve in the war?
I was on the USS Vestal. It was a repair ship. And can I take off from my story?
Go right ahead.
And after graduating from boot camp and traveling from there to Mare Island Navy Yard at Vallejo, California, I boarded the USS Tabinta, a Dutch cargo ship which was leased by the Navy to transport troops and supplies to the South Pacific area. I landed at Noumea, New Caledonia, an island east of Australia. I stayed on the island until the USS Vestal had finished R&R at Sydney, Australia. I boarded the USS Vestal at Noumea, New Caledonia on 16 September 1943. From that time until 13 November 1943, they completed 158 jobs on 21 ships. The USS Vestal AR-4 was an auxiliary repair ship. They repaired everything and made a lot of parts. Their slogan was, "We repair everything from a set of false teeth to a submarine." I might add that the U.S. Vestal served in World War I as a collier, carrying coal out to the ships at sea. At this time, it was the oldest commissioned ship in the U.S. Navy. Captain H.J. Pohl was my commanding officer. At one time, my ship was in need of repair herself, especially new evaporators. The Vestal departed Majero and sailed via Pearl Harbor for the Mare Island Navy Yard. Upon conclusion of those repairs, the addition of new equipment, alterations, and a general overhaul, and a vari-colored paint job, that's a camouflage job, the vessel departed Mare Island on 8 September, bound for the Carolinas. Her voyage took her via Pearl Harbor and Eniwetok. At the latter place, she picked up tows for the remainder of her voyage. A cement barge, the Shimmerat, and the Navy During the ship's sojourn at Ulithi Island, the vessel completed 2,195 jobs for 149 ships, including 14 battleships, 9 carriers, 5 destroyers, and 55 tankers, and other miscellaneous naval merchantman ships. Her biggest repair job of that time was the light cruiser Reno, CL-96, torpedoed off San Bernardino Strait by Japanese submarine I-41 on the night of 3 November. Once again, the vessel workers performed their task quickly and efficiently, having Reno on her way in a short time for permanent repairs in the stateside yard. The USS Vestal complement was approximately 100 men, most of which were skilled tradesmen and a few ship's company personnel, which I was one. At the end of World War II, the USS Vestal was allowed to perform decommissioning work on other ships, referred to the 13th Naval District for disposal. The USS Vestal was ultimately decommissioned at the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard on 14 August 1946. Struck from the Navy list on 25 September of the same year. She lay inactive for the next 2.5 years before stripping began on 20 May 1949. Her hulk was sold on 28 July 1950 to the Boston Metals Company, Baltimore, Maryland, and subsequently scrapped.
Jeez. Where was your ship positioned in the ocean, and what obstacles in the ocean did you come across?
Well, let's see. The U.S. Navy was part of the Third Fleet in the Pacific Ocean. They kept it out of harm's way to repair other ships. The greatest obstacle was suicide attacks by Japanese planes, kamikazes, and numerous typhoons.
Were you in Halsey's Navy?
That's right, the Third Fleet.
Okay.
Okay. During May 1945, the vessel went to general quarters 59 times as Japanese planes made suicide attacks on the ships engaged in the bitter Okinawa campaign. Experience proved that the best defense against the suiciders was a smoke or fog screen produced by all ships that blended into one gigantic mass of low-hanging clouds. For that purpose, the vessel had 2 boats equipped with fog generators and several barrels of oil. Besides the fog generators, smoke pots would be thrown over the bow of the ship to emit a dense, white, sickening, smelly smoke for about 15 minutes apiece. Besides the danger posed by suiciders, deck sentries kept a sharp lookout for any enemy who might attempt to swim out to the ships with mines or explosive charges. Quite often, repair ships and hospital ships were anchored near secured islands.
What was your daily job on this ship? And what was your battle station?
Let's see. When I came aboard the USS Vestal, I was a seaman first class, right out of boat camp. Just out of high school, the only skill I knew was typing. There were vacancies for yeomen aboard the ship, so I tried out for one yeoman third. And that was my job in World War II. I was in the executive officer's office, all types of office work like typing and filing. One of the duties was to do court-martial reporting, even on other ships. Those ships would send for me in their fancy captain's gigs, and my ship would announce my name on the loudspeaker when the gig arrived. I had several battle stations. One of them was the earphones controller .30 caliber Lewis machine guns on the bridge wings, which I would empty. Another battle station was caretaker of all personal records, of which I would empty all records into a large watertight bag and be ready to go over the side with my life preserver on.
Okay. What were the requirements, type of training did you have to meet? Where were you trained?
In wartime, the main requirement was to be responsibly healthy and willing to take orders. I went to the Navy boot camp. I was in Company 411, 1943, Camp Scott, Regiment 5, Battalion 18, U.S. Navy Training Station, Farragut, Idaho. There were 117 recruits in my class. I joined the U.S. Navy on 8 June 1943. Training consisted of marching, swimming, boat handling, knot tying, obstacle course, and choir, and other duties as assigned, to name a few. I figured I went into the Navy as a boy and I came out a man. My time in the Navy wasn't all work. We had our own ship's paper with the latest news and artwork, received mail, movies every night, snacks anytime, good food, swimming, and or beach parties on secured islands, and we went ashore in Hong Kong, China. I enjoyed watching the different craftsmen at their trades, repairing things like making tiny screws to repair typewriters, to building 40-foot passenger lifeboats. Ships lost lifeboats during the typhoons and had to be replaced. I also watched ships being repaired, like a torpedo hit on the side. They welded a piece of steel on it, even underwater welding, patched it up to get to a port for major repair.
What were and are currently are your feelings about the war?
Well, World War II was totally justified in my estimation.
What battles did you fight in?
The Battle of Okinawa, April, May 1945. We survived general quarters, that's battle stations, 59 times in May 1945, as Japanese planes made suicide attacks on the ships engaged in the bitter Okinawa campaign. The USS Vestal personnel repaired ships damaged in many other battles too.
And how long were you in the Navy?
Almost 3 years. I enlisted 8 June 1943 at Fargo, North Dakota. I was discharged 29 May 1946 at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, Bremerton, Washington. Enlistment then was the duration of the war plus 6 months. Many called it V6, meaning victory plus 6 months. Being a yeoman, I discharged the shipmates during the paperwork.
Well, was your ship hit during any of these campaigns, and was it hit while you were aboard?
On 6 December 1941, the USS Vestal was moored alongside the Arizona, the BB-39, at berth F7 off Fort Island to provide service to the battleships during her scheduled period of tender upkeep between 6 and 12 December. The next day, however, the ordered routine of the peacetime Sunday in port was rudely shattered shortly before 0800. Explosions from bombs and torpedoes began to reverberate across the waters of the harbor as the Japanese carrier-based aircraft swept down upon the ships of the fleet anchored or moored in their berths. At 07:55, the Vestal went to general quarters, manning every gun from the 5-inch broadside battery to the 30 caliber Lewis machine guns on the bridge wings. At about 08:05, her 3-inch guns commenced firing. At about the same time, 2 bombs, probably intended for the more valuable battleship inboard, hit the repair ship. One struck the port side, penetrated 3 decks, passing through a cruise space, and exploded in a store hole, starting fires that necessitated flooding the forward magazines. The second hit the starboard side, passed through the carpenter shop, the ship fitter shop, and left an irregular hole about 5 feet in diameter in the bottom of the ship. The problem of maintaining the anti-aircraft fire soon became a secondary one to the ship's fight for survival that ensued. The 3-inch gun jammed about 3 rounds, and the crew was working to clear the jam when a gigantic explosion blew the vessel's valiant gunners overboard. At about 08:20, the Arizona, moored inboard, had taken a torpedo that had passed between the repair ship and the stern. Almost simultaneously, the bomb penetrated the Arizona's deck after glancing off the fireplate of the number 2 turret and exploded in the black powder magazine below. The result explosion touched off adjacent main battery magazines, almost as if in a violent eruption. The forward part of the battleship exploded, and the concussion from the explosion literally cleaned Vestal's deck. Among the men blowing off the Vestal was her commanding officer, Commander Clayton Young. The captain swam back to the ship, however, countermanded an abandoned ship order that someone had given and ordered the ship underway. Fortunately, the engineer officer had anticipated just such an order and already had the Black Gang hard at work getting up steam. Topside seemed bleak, a lone word bleak. The firing explosion touched off oil from the ruptured tanks of the stricken battleship, and in turn caused fires to start on board the Vestal, aft and amidships. At 8:45, men forward cut Vestal's lines, freeing her from the dying battleship, and she got underway, steering by engines alone. A tug pulled the Vestal's bow away from the inferno engulfing Arizona and the repair ship, and the latter began to creep out of danger, although she was slowly assuming a list to starboard and taking water aft. At 9:10, the Vestal anchored in 35 feet of water off McGrew's Point. Upon further reflection, however, with the draft aft increasing to 27 feet and the list to 6½ degrees, Commander Young decided upon another course of action. Because of the unstable condition of the ship, Young explained in his after-action report, the ship being on fire in several places and the possibility of further attacks, it was decided to ground the ship underway to Aida Shoals at 09:50. Less than an hour after the Japanese attack ended, the Vestal grounded on Aida Shoal soon thereafter. There were 7 men killed aboard the USS Vestal on 7 December 1941. While I was aboard the USS Vestal, only the gun tugs were hit during the Battle of Okinawa.
Okay. Did you have any problems during the war, or did you have any lasting medical effects?
After spending some R&R in Okinawa, China, or Hong Kong, China, I beg your pardon, I acquired cholera for about 9 days. I was quite sick with about 16 other shipmates. I acquired my first pair of glasses in Hong Kong, plastic rim glasses. The doctor learned to be an eye doctor, I guess, in the USA. I was experienced headaches from the close work on the typewriter. Back to the cholera. We only had sulfa tablets available for treatment. Penicillin had not been invented yet.
Okay. You already said you enlisted. Is there anything else you want to say about your joining the Army or the Navy?
Let's see. They were not drafting 17-year-olds at that time. I enlisted in June 1943 in the U.S. Navy at 17 and 3 months of age. Let's see, my skills, I perfected my skills in typing and other office management.
It was during the war?
That's during the war.
Okay. Did you kill anyone or sink a ship during the war?
None of the above. I saw some of each, but I didn't participate.
What, you said you saw some of each. Did you actually see ships go down?
Well, outside of Pearl Harbor, and while I was aboard the USS Vessel, no one was wounded or killed on my ship.
Okay. Did you receive any medals, did you advance in grade?
I received the following medals: the Victory Medal, the American Area Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Area Medal with 1 Bronze Star, the Good Conduct Medal, and the China Service Medal. The USS Vestal, the AR-4, received 3 battle stars for her World War II service: the Pearl Harbor, the Saipan, and the Okinawa. My rates rose in progression from apprentice seaman, seaman second, fireman 3rd class, seaman 1st class, yeoman 3rd, and yeoman 2nd.
Okay. Do you recall the day your service ended? Where were you?
Well, I discharged myself at that time because the ship was docked, and then went to the train station bound for home, Enderlin, North Dakota. When I got home, the folks had moved to Minot, North Dakota, and I didn't know that. So I had to board another train, the Sioux Line, which my dad had worked on, and went to Minot, where the folks had settled down in a room.
Every day. Okay. What did you do in the days and weeks after your service ended?
Well, Dad was sick at the time, but I was hunting for a job. I was just out of the service, and I wanted to get to work. They told us that one of the couple of things you ought to do is start for work. Better you start looking for a job than just laying around. So it took me a couple months, but I did get a job.
What kind of job was it?
I got a job. I went to work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, working on heavy construction, doing multiple jobs for 37 years. After 10 years of work, I took my GED test and got my high school diploma. That was a struggle too, I think. I worked on 7 flood control dams, 2 of the world's biggest locks, and also one 2,000-foot conduit cut and cover project, and ended and extended a runway on an Air Force base. I retired as a construction representative at GS-11 1 September 1983.
Okay. Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
Yes, I did. I met a fellow when I came aboard, and he was a yeoman too. There was 6 of us in the office at the time. But we remained friends for, her name was Ernie Sauter, and I remained a friend of his for 57 years. And he just died with skin cancer July 3rd, 2001. So we worked side by side for almost 3 years, and then we were sending Christmas cards to each other. And I didn't get to see him. I attended to some of the ship's reunions. In 1984, I attended one, and I overheard that he was there. But when I came over there, I was short on time because I was visiting my son in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was out at the golf course. And I waited and waited, and I guess he never did get to come in, and I didn't see him, so I had to get back with my son to his home.
Sure.
And of course, they had these reunions scheduled all over the United States, really, where anybody that wanted one could say, well, why don't you have one in my area at one time? And sure enough, and then there was a couple in Michigan, but I worked so much on my jobs that I couldn't get away the same time that the reunions were, so I missed a lot of them.
Okay. Okay. You already told us what you did as a career after the war. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'm happy to have been invited to participate in this National Veterans History Project.
Okay, can we just chat a little now?
Okay, fine.
When you went in, and I was surprised when you said that there was a naval training station in Idaho. And
yeah,
Idaho's landlocked.
Okay, let me. Yeah, it was a quickie because there were so many. There was a quickie buildup when they built that at Farragut, Idaho. I'll fill in more of it right now. Instead of sending all the guys that were I was in North Dakota to Great Lakes,
right,
they quickly had to, because they had they had Montana boys, and they had a lot of Eastern guys too, and the only 3 that training stations that they had, the Navy had, were filling up real fast. So they constructed this one in Farragut, Idaho, and that was easy for me. I got on the Great Northern at Fargo, and I went right on, and it was just outside of Spokane, and that was where we had our first liberty, was in Spokane, Washington. But we were isolated out there.
Yeah, you're out in the desert.
Yeah, and oh goodness sake! And when it was all cut and dried, and the Navy, they weren't having any more camps built there anymore. They turned it into a Boy Scout camp. The Boy Scouts bought it because it was a beautiful place there. They had beautiful, and lake was right there. That's where we trained, in the lake. And they were all new buildings when we came there. When they got, and they had a spur line that went off the main line right into the camp. So there was no, you had to stay. And it was 117 guys. We were all the same age right there. And as soon as we left, there was another bunch coming right in behind us.
Was this just for yeoman training then?
No, this just for U.S. Navy boys.
Right.
No, when I came aboard ship, that's when I decided I wanted to be a Navy, because I was 17 in 3 months. I didn't have any skills, and I took typing my junior year. See, now this is
right.
No, I'm 77. I'm talking like when I was 17 years old. See, and so I thought, well, gee, I didn't. I love typing, and I was sharp at it because I was just out of school, just a little bit. I could do 75 words or 80 words a minute,
right.
And I did it in boot camp too. See,
okay.
And so I was still sharp on it. The guy, my commanding officer, he said, "Well, can you type?" And then when we had our choir, we had a beautiful choir. I got a certificate on that, and a beautiful camp choir, Navy choir. I had a high tenor voice in those days, and he gave me a commendation on it. Even
cool.
the director there, and So, and I sang aboard ship too a few times when I got on late. But as soon as when it was just, it was fun.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. And then of course, the guys that were in my camp, we just split up completely. As soon as we went out of boot camp, they took, I was a fireman. Imagine that. And I said to myself, that's a red race. I had a red band on, and I said, no, that's below deck.
You're right.
And I don't want to be a fireman. I want to see them coming. So I finally got a chance to seaman first class when I came aboard my ship, and that was a relief. And then they asked me aboard ship though when I come aboard, well, what can you do? I was seaman first class. I said, well, hey, I can type, and there's some vacancies in the office down there, and our repair office. I didn't get into that place. I mean, that was mammoth, and there was about 10 yeomen in that, and we were all just a partition away. They were in a big office. Ours was just the executive office. He just had his small office, but there were 6 of us in there with him and a chief. And he was a grumpy old man, but he was a lieutenant commander. He had wrinkles all over. He was a regular Navy guy. And remember now, there's lots of regular Navy guys, and this Pearl Harbor shook them up real bad. Now, when I came aboard, that R&R in Australia helped them feel a little better about themselves. But us guys that our reserve outfit, we came aboard, why we were just little boys, you know. I mean, what the heck here? We didn't go through all what they just got done through. So it was hard to make friends right away. It took me six months or better, because they didn't want to make friends too much, because they were sore. They were mumbling to themselves a lot, and they were talking different things, and we weren't in on that.
Right.
And but I was so fascinated by this repair ship. I got a picture of it right here.
Well, before we get to that, where'd you ship out of? When you left the States, where'd you go? What port did you ship?
Merritt Island, Vallejo, California.
Okay,
that's
Vallejo,
where I went down.
okay.
And the USS Tabinta, I mentioned in my story, was a Dutch cargo ship. And I thought, oh my God, that ain't my ship. And but it was going down to Australia. Now this happened when Guadalcanal was going on this time too. That was a fierce battles down there. Oh my! And Noumea, Caledonia, they had the biggest leper colony in the world. Is that Noumea, and it was all fenced in, and we couldn't get. I could see it when I was there, but it was a big port, and all these some 50. The first time, well, they were repairing ships right there. And I stayed ashore for a while before I went on, before I came aboard. And I was telling the wife, I was really, really itchy, just a 17-year-old kid, you know. And I went aboard my ship at night. They come and got me, and I thought, oh, what do they do, Shanghai me out of here, you know? And I had worked, I got a job there too while they were, because I was typing, and because they didn't want you to sit around doing nothing, just waiting for your ship to come in, you know. But it was already moored out in the ocean, and there was buoyed up out there, and they come and call me my name, and I was all packed. They said, you be ready. I don't know, it was really dark, and they come up alongside the ship there, you know, and in a whaleboat, and I got out. There was several other women, but I didn't know anybody. And then I came aboard, and the guy, there was an officer on deck, and he asked my name, and I had to salute, and the flag, even at night, and permission to come aboard, and you already knew that, and then they bumped me down for a few days, and of course I didn't get a chance to see what the ship looked like, but it was a dirty old ship, you know, because they do phenomenal work aboard that ship, and they were doing something like, if you know it, underwater welding, what hadn't quite come in yet, but our boys perfected it. They'd go down in underwater because they'd list the ship if it had a torpedo hole. And I've seen some holes in some. I've got some names of some of these ships that were hit. You could drive a truck through them, and they list them just a little bit, and then these guys put a big old plate over it. Our steel hole was mammoth. I looked down that steel hose and these pieces were sticking up, and then of course they hook onto them and pull these sheets out, and then they pull these ships up not alongside, because you put a barge in between them. And my office was on the quarterdeck, was right on the first deck of the ship, and I heard and seen everything that was going, because our windows were open to the dock, to the deck all the time. And I've seen as many and come outside and looked, and 25 ships would be lined up alongside of us, each doing things on each one of these ships. And, yeah, it was fantastic. And I'd go down in the hold, and they'd come ashore from their ships that maybe they had a valve that had been hit or busted, and it was just a piece of it. Well, they'd take it to one of our guys there, they were professional people, and he said, yeah, I can make one of them. And he'd take them down to the molding shop and make one, and the same thing. And then the guys up, the yeoman, repair yeoman, be on the other side. We fraternized once in a while, but they were so busy all the time. You could hear them talking over there and talking parts and everything. I'm glad I wasn't in there, because I was in the executive office. In other words, I was in ship's company, and we took care of the men. And I was a court-martial yeoman for 6 months, and that court-martial, that's what the word means. There was some monkey business going on in different places and on other ships, and the chief and I didn't even, it was phenomenal. I didn't know shorthand, but I could write like I don't know what, and I could reread it when I got back. And my chief would take me over to the ship, and there'd be guys over there that were fighting, and Navy guys that were fighting each other aboard their ship, and the master at arms, they put them in their cell. We had a cell aboard ship, and then if the captain says, well, we're going to get a court-martial yeoman here, we're going to have a court-martial, or we're going to reduce you in grade, or whatever. And then they called for me and my chief, and we'd go over there, and my chief he'd engineer the thing, but I would sit back and write it down and listen to them and what they were doing. And then, of course, the legal officer would come too. He was, and I got a commendation from him on my work. He was fascinated that I could come back to my ship after taking all that stuff down in longhand and put it together.
Special talent.
And then of course that was 6 months. Now I was on there 3 years, and there was other things that I was doing too. That when I was, I must have had a period. We had them in about 6 months periods, but I was a record keeper too. That's when I had my GQ station. I had to train myself to get that bag down real quick, and there were at least 700 records in 2 big shelves, 2 big cupboards, and you pull them out, and they were all stacked up and alphabetized. Well, they had to be alphabetized. See? Well, anyway, when I had to practice GQ, and you didn't know when it was going to happen, I had to jump up from my desk. We were in a row. 4 of us were in a row. Our typewriters were in a row. And it was a trick with those typewriters too, by the way. It's coming to mind right now that you had to watch your carriage, because if we were underway, the ship was doing this and all that, and we figured out a way to stop that bang bang stuff, is to put a rubber band on it. But a lot of these guys, we had a typewriter repair shop just over the aisleway, and that's where they were making them little screws.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, it fascinated me to walk over there and never say a word, just watch them making little things for eyeglasses and binoculars and everything that in there. This was a repair ship. I mean, it was fantastic.
When you were out in the South Pacific, and you brought a book in here to show us kind of where you were, if I can hold this up and just show it for the camera here. These are the Philippine Islands, and as you can see, he was all around the Philippine Islands and Japan, and the Dutch East Indies and the Caroline Islands.
New Caledonia, way down there,
Right. You know,
close to Australia.
Close to Australia. Did you get ashore at any of these spots other than when you first went?
Well, New Caledonia again,
Right,
spot, Hong Kong, China, and I was out on several islands, and we had our what you call beer parties on
No.
secured islands,
Okay.
because we just had to relax sometimes when we were aboard ship.
When you were aboard ship, and you were under attack by the kamikazes, where was that? Do you remember?
Okinawa,
Okinawa.
right?
Okay. So let me find the island here. Here's Hokkaido.
Yeah, that's south of Japan.
Right. Maybe you could show us.
Okinawa.
Okinawa.
Okinawa was right there.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now, were you at the top deck?
I was top deck all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, my office, my job was on top side.
On top side.
Uh-huh.
How did it feel when you saw the kamikazes?
Well, like I say, we laid smoke. Well, Buckner Bay, there's another name, but they named it Buckner Bay because of the Army colonel that it was on Okinawa, and we came in Buckner Bay, and all the ships that were doing repair work or needed repair were in Buckner Bay, and when the kamikazes were flying over Okinawa, we were right close to them all the time. But when we got an attack sound, and general quarters were sound, we'd lay smoke. We start our boats around it, and every ship had a smoke boat, and they would go round and round your ship, and the smoke wouldn't go very high. It would just go about mast high, and if a kamikaze flew over, all he'd look at was a low-hanging cloud. He didn't see a ship, and they'd keep right on flying because they were moving, those guys.
Yeah.
And from stories and from pictures that I've seen of kamikazes coming down, why they just zero in on you, and they're not going to stop. And a lot of the ships that we repaired had kamikaze runs on them, and a lot of them were sick, were sunk too, so they didn't make it to get repaired.
Did you were you on board when they were repairing any of the famous carriers or anything like that?
Well, not too much of the carrier, but I got a little remembrance now of when the Missouri came out, the first time she came out. How I remember so much because it wasn't long. Her boat showed up at our ship, with a whole couple loads of typewriters.
Oh.
That they had. Some of them had been dropped. They must have had some young yeoman aboard the Missouri, because that was a big wagon, and they kind of mistreated their typewriters, and our people, our repairmen had to tune them up and fix them, and then they come back. But I remember that they were talking about there were so many typewriters all of a sudden from the Missouri, and they had just come out just left the States to come out for duty.
You brought with you an album. Is there anything in there you'd care to?
Well, it's.
Some highlighter.
I had some pictures that were taken with some of the fellows that were aboard my ship. That were taken by our own photographer. We had a photographer aboard.
Okay.
And he would take a lot of the pictures of the repair end of it, which we were keeping for
Yeah, for the record.
For the record, really.
Sure.
But these people were people I knew, and they were, and the photographer would come around and take a picture of them.
Okay.
And we had church services aboard every Sunday. And
what's your fondest memory of the Navy?
well, that's kind of hard because I was on the move so much of trying to locate and talk to people, and I was interested in stories of the men after I got to know them well enough. And I was well in my job, as I was asked a couple times to so there was a couple now I remember some tankers that were close by that they must have been in some battle of some type, and they had lost their yeoman, or one had gotten sick or transferred, and they were without a yeoman. So I was detailed to go over and teach a seaman how to type. I know I taught one how to type. He didn't know anything about a typewriter, but I taught him how, and I was a couple of weeks over there, and I was getting a little itchy because they were venturing out to where to where it was getting a little bit crowded for Japanese ships. So because my ship, we were always in the background. We just couldn't afford to get up where it was too bad.
Right.
Because these ships, they were some of them were in real bad shape.
How many men were on the vessel?
We had 100, about 100 men.
How many were repairmen?
Oh, they were more. Well, the ship's company. There weren't very many of us in ship's company. The yeomen were, and the water tenders, and the barber, and the ship's cooks, and the laundrymen. They were all ship's company. But a lot of the carpenters, they had lots. We had carpenters. In fact, on our boat deck, that was another deck higher than where I was, and I was fascinated. Well, I'd be early morning. I'd go up there, and they were just starting the keel on a boat, and when the evening finished, completed, they had it already built, and they would fix it up, and then pretty soon there'd be another boat come over, and they'd tie it to it and take it back because they lost one of their boats. Every ship has to have a complement of lifeboats.
Sure.
And we built them aboard, and I guess they sold them for $1 a piece. I guess just for.
Yeah.
But they were all fixed up, and the boat crane would pick it up and set it in the water, and then they'd come along and pick it up. Away they go, and then be another one there started. I think they had about 2 or 3 of them going all at the same time. You could hear them pounding and sawing up there all the time, just above me.
Where were you when you heard of the atom bomb?
The atom bomb. Let's see. Well, I was at Saipan, and that's where the Enola Gay took off. So it was. Well, I think we probably heard some of that when we left New Caledonia, because we started to go north. In the several of the well, let's see.
But did people on the boat understand what was meant by an A-bomb?
Well, they said it was gigantic. I know.
Yeah.
It was a gigantic bomb, and of course, I never associated much with the pilots, with the airplane.
Right.
We were a long ways from there, but I saw a lot of them go over, a lot of planes, and lot of stories of them when they, and of course, a lot of them did a lot of damage. And at Pearl Harbor, the fellows aboard ship sure had a lot of stories that they watched them coming right on them. Someone couldn't get that out of their mind when they saw them coming right over the top, and especially the one that went down in amidships and went all the way through the bottom. Why? You had to be pretty careful.
Where were you when you heard the war is over?
I was in Buckner Bay, and when VJ came, I was in Buckner Bay at the time. That's Okinawa. That was that's our last spot. And we heard a lot about, can't think of, let's see, not Okinawa, but Iwo Jima.
Iwo Jima.
Our ship worked a lot on a lot of the amphibious equipment that had already been we had to tune them up, a lot of them, and a lot of them had to be repaired because a lot of it was from ship to shore, that they were bringing all the equipment and stuff to Iwo Jima on the beach. And our ship was, we weren't all that close at that time, but we were doing a lot of work with with some of the LSTs and LSBs.
Well, you were right in the middle of it, though.
You might say I was in the middle of it, but then I was up far from the front.
But if you were anywhere around Okinawa at the end of the war, I mean, that was where it all was.
Yeah, that's where it was, and in the China Sea, and I got a medal for that.
It's an interesting story.
Well, at 17, I was getting all I could get, all the information I could get, and remember it. I enjoyed it. The food was excellent, and we just had the camaraderie between the yeomen were good. I had real close friends, and we're working together. We worked elbow to elbow, you might say, in just a small space, and we slept in our office. We had bunks that you could let down and pull up, and right in the office, so you slept right over your job.
That's hard for some people to even imagine. Yeah,
well, you couldn't be too big because you couldn't get around in some of those quarters.
Right.
Because when we had general quarters, you had a special way that you had to go to your general quarter spot, and you better not deviate with it because you're going to run into somebody. Because everybody had to go one way.
Right.
And when you come back, you go back another way. You had to remember that.
When you came back, I know you came in back to the States and you discharged yourself.
I did, because I took care of my own record.
Right.
It was right there. And so I made an entry in my own record and discharged me. And then if I recollect right, I got my ruptured duck, as we call it. There's a pin that you put on your, that you get a pin for being discharged. I think I received it, because I didn't have any on board ship. I think I received it on shore when I went to shore. Because we had to take our sea bags, and I remember there was a big area in there that you had to dump out your sea bag and see if you weren't carrying the wrong things home. At least the Navy, I figured. So the only thing I went home with was my my dictionary, which had U.S. Navy on it, and my Bible.
Oh, okay.
We had a little blue Bible that we had. I kept it with me, and two towels. I beg your pardon. I remember two big Navy towels. Of course, we owned them. You see,
right?
And big white ones. I commented to the wife. We used them up for years. We kept them. Yeah. So
speaking of the wife, when did the lovely Dorothy come into your life?
Well, let's see. She came in during my construction years.
Oh, your construction years.
Yeah, we've been married 55 years now.
Wow.
And her dad was an engineer, and they moved out to one of this big dam that I was on in my home state.
Which dam?
The Corps of Engineers. Well, the Garrison Dam.
Okay.
I got so many dams on my mind now that
Right.
they're all flood control dams. Is what they are.
Right.
And this was on the Missouri River, the first one. It's it's one of the world's biggest rolled earth dam. You put the material down on 6-inch lifts, and it's rolled, and then you put another lift on, and you keep building it up to about 210 feet high. And it was a half a mile wide at the bottom. I remember that. And it's to this day it's about 150 feet deep in that lake. It's called Lake Agassiz now in North Dakota. It's on the map. People go there to see it every year, and then fishing was tremendous on it. But it's right on the Missouri River.
It's quite a river, the Missouri.
Yeah, it was. It really was. Yeah. Through North Dakota. But they harnessed it. In South Dakota got a couple big dams too on the same thing.
Yeah.
Some of the fellows moved up, and I was on. When I stayed there, I had enough time that I wasn't going to go to anything else but stay in government work as long as I could.
Sure.
So, with my Navy time and my civil service job, I amounted to 40 years. So then I retired. So
it was pretty nice to have that kind of.
It was helpful. Yeah. Because most places they wanted just veterans,
right.
Especially on the first dam I was on. They wanted veterans.
Sure.
And that was a mammoth thing. We enjoyed living there for a while, and then transferred. I did a lot of jobs there, numerous jobs throughout my career, and lots of concrete. And lots of dirt work that I finally got in. That was my love was concrete.
Okay.
Because I became a batch plant operator, especially on these two world big locks that I was on. One on the Seaway lock, which was the Snell lock, later on named, and the Sault Ste. Marie lock, the pole lock in Michigan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I run the batch plant.
I'll be darned.
I really, they hunted me up because I had been on one, and they hunted me up, the Corps did, and said, would you like to come to Michigan and run the batch plant at the Sioux? And I said, yeah, I'll be glad to come.
Yeah, I mean, you were used to the cold, so.
Yeah, I sure was. There was 18 inches of snow the day we moved into our house. I came from Kansas at the time, and the farther we drive north, the colder it got.
Oh, very good. Well, Clayton, I think this has been most interesting.
Most interesting.
We really do appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
And participating in this program. Would it be possible for us to make a copy of your documents here?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, we put them together.
Yeah, I mean, we will make that a part of the record.
Yeah.
That goes to
that's the questions. Now, this you don't need, because these are yours. Are we on?
No, we're still on.
Oh, okay. Okay, now.
Is that a picture of the Vestal I see under there?
Yes.
Let me hold it up for the camera.
Yeah.
This is in camouflage.
Yeah, that's the camouflage one. Fine. That's when we got that, I was aboard that. When we got that, we knew we were going to the island.
Okay.
And this is the peacetime color.
Okay.
The battleship blue.
Let me see if we can get it without. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And we made that a part of the record. And if we can make, copies of your sheets there.
Yep. These are questions, and here's the answer.
Okay. Here's your questions right here.
Yeah, right. I knew I had another one.
Right.
Okay.
this is, you know, we're trying to collect all the information we can on your experience, though. Well, I'd say, you know, I thought this has gone very well.
This is my yeoman second class rate that I was.
Okay, let's hold it up a little straighter here.
All right.
There we go.
Could I make a little correction?
Yeah.
You said Lake Agassiz, Lake Sakakawea, in Riverdale.
Yeah.
Very good. He's got that now, so very good. Well, I think this went very well today.
She just corrected me on a real boo-boo.
That's what wives are
The
for.
dam I was on that was Lake Sakakawea. All right, well, that's good.
Lake Agassiz, that was Edro.
Yeah.
We need him to keep us straight, you know.
All right.
Okay, I appreciate you coming in.
Okay, all right.
And we thank you for your service and for your participation and for your little pin
Oh,
and
yeah.
remembrance of your participation here. And thank you very much.
Okay, and you're gonna make a copy of what I have.
She's going to make a copy and give that to the originals back to
All
you.
right.